Hello to everyone, all of our viewers around the world. Howdy, howdy, howdy. I'm Dedra Stevenson, and you are looking at and listening to You, Me, and ICED. We are finally back together after a little technical glitch last week. We apologize for that, but we're back online now with our gang, almost all in attendance, except for Rodney Harper. We have to miss him this week. Work has taken him away, as it sometimes does. So that's all right. He will be making sporadic appearances throughout the season. So I'll let you guys know. But our regulars are all with us, and we're very, very happy that they are. That's Mr. B up there, our producer and the author of The Art of Giving Back. And he does a wonderful podcast of his own called Free Talk with Mr. B. And there's Richard D. I'm so happy Richard is back. Yay.
Great to be
Richard.
Here. Thank you.
Yeah, we missed you a lot. We really did. And Richard is the author of how many books?
19 novels and a few other bits and pieces at the moment.
Because you've recently published a new novel. Why don't you hold that up, because we're taking a moment for
there it is. It's called I Remember Everything, and it's actually available to pre-order now, but it will actually be officially launched on the 1st of July.
I love it. That's fantastic. We do this podcast because we are passionate about the subjects, and we love to discuss intellectual matters that matter to everyone else in our artistic community. But we can take a commercial moment now and then to talk about products that we have out there, because let's face it, we need to make a living too, right?
So yeah.
So get out there and buy Richard's books, because he is a great sci-fi writer.
Good.
Yes. And Lene Pieters, my friend and my editor. Here's my commercial moment, people, for The Buchanan Bastard. Lene is the one that edited this fantastic novel for me, the best novel I've written until now. Nice chunky book there you've got, and it's a crime thriller set in New Orleans, Louisiana, with international ties to Russia and the Middle East. Intrigued yet? I hope you are, because you need to order this right away. I guarantee it's not boring, not for one single second. You're going to be glued to the pages. So Lene is a great editor as well. So if you have a work that needs to be edited, she's your girl. So Lene, tell us more about yourself.
Hi, Dedra. Hi, everybody. Good to be back. And yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I do ghostwriting. I do some writing of my own occasionally. Developmental editor. I don't like copy editing as much, because we'll probably talk about that a bit later tonight, but AI can do those boring jobs for you. And I'm also an artist. So behind me is one of my new big mixed media installation pieces called The Blockheads, showcasing how we all unify in our diversity with the blockchain and crypto spaces these days and the metaverse. So if anybody's interested in taking a look at any of my art, I do sell prints on Fine Art America's website, where they have the shipping facilities available, different styles of printing. You can have shower curtains, tote bags, canvas, prints, gallery wraps, whatever your heart desires. So just search for Lene Pieters and take a look at what I'm doing in my downtime when I'm not busy researching all kinds of crazy stuff like 1970s police codes in New Orleans.
That's right. That's right.
Dedra's book was set.
Yeah, man, it was setting kind of stuff. Lene helped me craft that
pre-internet. Pre-internet, which is, it's really difficult to do research and be consistent. And with today's sophisticated readers who can Google anything for themselves, it's on the author to make sure that your work is plausible, it checks out, and it's the little things that everybody's been seeing in sci-fi films and novels and dramas and TV shows. And if your work says something to the contrary, you better back it up with proper research, because those readers are coming for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. Well, you mentioned blockchain, and that's one of those incredible tech terms that we're going to be kind of getting into on the discussion tonight. We're going to be talking about, well, basically our fears as it turns to AI. And that what I mean by AI is artificial intelligence, and how it's become a part of our lives, like it or not. It's not going anywhere. I guess I may reveal my age here in a way, but it reminds me of the time when everybody was talking about this amazing thing called the internet that was just about to sweep across the globe. and, and they were fearful of the internet because information would be out there very readily available, and people worried about privacy and all kinds of issues. And it turned out to be okay. Well, I guess it depends on what perspective you're talking about, but everything is relative in terms of who's talking about it or looking at it. But now we have up the ante, with AI, so to speak. And this is what we're going to talk about. I mean, what kind of threat does this pose to writers, to illustrators, to artists in general? But Lene, I think you might be a great person to kick this off.
Well, I'm also a paralegal, so I tend to follow a lot of articles about lawsuits, current court decisions, and face it, the American courts are the ones who have the most reach on social media. Everybody talks about their cases, take the lead in matters, and the interesting cases have taken over so much that it's hard to keep up with all the news. So I would recommend anybody just Google is your friend and find the latest news in your jurisdiction, because what works in one country might not work in another. But authors have come together, and it is a revolutionary time for us because AI affects every single stage of our writing. We have creating the story in one sense. So we have AI that can write it for us. But there the ethics come in, because if you're caught out with this, your reputation will suffer. Once you've got your stuff written and you need an editor, you can get an AI to edit it for you. Again, they might not preserve your voice the way a human editor might do it, but they're good for catching a lot of commas and spelling mistakes and things.
Right.
Once you've got that done and you're looking at your cover art, AI can create cover art for you. But has this been ripped off from another living artist's work or not? Are you going to take the risk? Would you rather want to invest in a human artist and support the other creative industries so that they can come up with something really unique that will affect your branding forevermore when these books are advertised on the internet? As a self-published author, then you're going to look at your marketing as well. AI can help you in that sense. There are AI versions that can create marketing strategies, content, social calendars, schedules, different hashtags for different markets and fields and countries. And then lastly, once you're looking at sales, and if you have to do this yourself, you don't have a publisher doing it for you, the AIs can now calculate your different sales funnels, marketing strategies, advertising posts, free accounting. And where the blockchain comes in is blockchain is just another kind of computer code, but it is readable by anyone else who has access to writing their own code to read your public blockchains. And it can help you do author contracts and automate some services. So if you want to have, for example, this is a very random example, but if you have a blockchain expert create for you a specific little contract that anybody who purchases any of your digital books from your website, you can allow them to then sell that copy secondhand back to another reader, and you can get a little commission and they can get a commission. This is something revolutionary that authors have never been able to do before. And this is just one example of what I've been seeing people talk about. So it is such a wide new field that we don't want to learn all of this stuff ourselves, but who do you trust? And then what will the courts say if this end up in a court case one day? Are you willing to take the legal risks? So don't just jump in based on what other authors say. I would recommend doing a lot more research before you commit to something. It could be an expensive mistake in the long run, but you could save a lot of time and money by making your process automated through AI, but not your content. Your writing must still be original.
Well, now, I mean, Richard, do you worry about, like, say, for example, if you have a manuscript, I mean, would you be afraid of putting that through an AI, sort of editing generator? I mean, do they keep it? Do they use it? Does the AI learn from it? Does it adapt? I mean, does it sort of take it in, sort of absorb it into its general, memory?
Database. Yeah.
Database, right, exactly. What do you think, Richard?
I personally, at the moment, I don't have anything at all to do with it, with my knowledge, if you want me to say. I have a sneaking suspicion that the machine learning has probably sampled some of my work already without my knowledge or even permission, unless it's in very small print at the bottom of the contract. So I think that at the moment, basically, AI content creation is mainly plagiarized from everyone else. And I personally don't want anything to do with it. I've looked, I must admit, I've looked at a couple of programs that purport to be able to write it better than you can, and you put your version in, and then they write their version afterwards. And I'm not impressed. There seems to be no emotion in it. It's just a set of words that says the same thing in a different way, and from what I've seen so far, not a better way. So I'm aware it's there. I'll keep an eye on it. I'm annoyed that people may be learning from what I've already written, and I'm just waiting to see if any of it reappears somewhere that I can spot. I certainly won't be using it myself.
Right. Right. Well, see, now that's what I mean, your concern is echoed through many, content creators out there. I mean, there's a whole bunch of us that are really afraid of exactly that kind of thing, that they would take your voice and the things that you've written and kind of generate it in other ways and, sort of indirectly plagiarize, from
Yeah.
you. Well, what do you think, Mr. B? I mean, would you be afraid of something like that happening?
There's an old saying scripturally that there's really nothing new under the sun. And if there's nothing new under the sun, it means we're all using something that has been used before. Whether it's a tree, or whether it's a building, or whether it's words, right? Because there's no new letters in the alphabet or anything. So I do not become afraid of like tools that will help us. And the same thing about the internet. Like some people, they still won't use a debit cards. There's some people who still won't go and search online and don't trust it. There's still people who do this, who do that. So for me, I would like to usually say, hey, everyone has a role. Some people are writing, but some people are reading. Some people are skeptical, but some people are using. And so it creates the balance in the whole world. I did a Lenza, I think it was, is that app who give me all of my avatars. And quite a few of my images came out looking like people I know already. Like they used Martin Luther King, they used Eddie Murphy, they used everyone that kind of looked like me and gave me an avatar. I would start laughing, saying, "Oh wow, this particular AI is using all the historical Black figures to give me avatars that kind of looks like me." So I felt satisfied, but it gave me a good laugh of all the avatars I saw, right? And so it means that we need to take it in jest. We need to take it in humor. We need to take it in caution for things that pertain to our, like Lene is saying, and Richard is saying, our legal perspective or our own work.
Right.
We're still right now using things that we ourselves didn't invent over the years. And so AI, artificial intelligence, is an accumulation of all, I think it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's an accumulation of everything we have made up all of these years, all of these centuries that was dumped into some source. Help us, maybe if we can help our listeners understand exactly what is it, because we're talking about it without even saying what really is it.
You take that one,
Well,
Lene.
I can, yeah, all right. So about 2 years ago at one of the crypto conferences, I met an elder gentleman who had been creating AI algorithms for the Wall Street banks since the 1980s. And an AI is basically a self-learning algorithmic type of computer code that works on statistics and probability. So if you give it 10 pictures of a white rose and 1 picture of a red rose, it will say the average rose is white, but you've got a 1 in 11 chance of getting a red one. So the more data you give it, the more it can sift through and come up with statistical likelihoods and things. Now, AI is not sentient in the terms of it having feelings or emotions or sensory inputs, but there have been stories of AIs that receive bonus rewards. I don't know how this works in computer terms, for doing certain outcomes, and that they have actually breached ethical rules put in place to get more of those rewards. So take that as you will. I mean, people are experimenting outside of the law here at the moment, but the average AI, if it has access to the open internet, it can see everything that people have uploaded. It cannot go into a library and read a physical book. So things that have been digitized are what makes up its data set. And if you, for example, there was an AI filter on social media like a year ago or so, where you took a screenshot of your face and it gave you 15 different versions of yourself. It took your face to create new samples, and people are upset that they weren't asked or informed in advance. So always read the fine print of every single program you use. Now, there are various AI out there. For my own art, I've experimented with one particular AI where my data set is private. I upload the photo and say, you will make 80% of the output based on my own artworks. No one else can see it. The output is private as well, and I have full copyright over what I've created. So I did a lot of research on that AI, and it's given me interesting ways of changing some of my compositions based on my previous artworks. But I'm extremely aware of every single little variable, my risks, my rights, what I'm signing and giving away to this AI as well. But too many people are jumping into it in an ignorant manner and trying to monetize. I know people who produce 10 to 15 workbooks a week, and they're selling them as ebooks on Amazon.
I was going to ask about that actually next.
It will rebalance eventually when the usual scammers and thieves come and take those workbooks and steal them. And that poor person says, but I created this. And the courts will say, no, you did not. An AI did.
Exactly. No, they did not.
So it's a bit the Wild West at the moment with some of the AI stuff. And the AI have to, what's interesting is the people in the Western countries have really dived into this wholeheartedly and just put in a lot of information, and illegally so, because they are breaching their company's data laws. If you've uploaded company data and customer data to create stuff and take a shortcut on your own work, you have now put your customers' information into an open AI that anyone else can access by accident. If they say, give me a demographic of people in this town, you've just given everything away to a competitor. So there's a lot of legal stuff that's still to come. As these things are exposed and mistakes happen, we will be learning as well. But the main thing that AI has taken away from us is we value our time. And if an AI can spit out 150 different versions of your novel in 10 minutes, your time has now been devalued. But that's why we have to bring our human originality in. For example, if an AI has to try and write Richard's stories, Richard, you've got an amazing life story of being on those boats. You can describe that sinking feeling of watching your stomach go down as your head goes up and the waves. An AI will never be able to imagine that. So I think the magic for us is to stick with the human sensory feedback, because the AI cannot replicate that. Well, they can try, but not as authentic as we can, for sure. And with regional flavor, I mean, most of it is American centric at the moment. I have to admit, I've tried doing some things with AI. Africa basically doesn't count. None of the other ethnicities count. They come up with various variations on physical attributes and stuff. And like you said, Mr. B, it's Eddie Murphy or Martin Luther King, you know.
I just laughed at it, because you're bringing up subjects that brings us way into another podcast, and I look forward to that too, because we can talk about it for a while. But those ethical issues do raise a concern as to who is included and who is excluded, and at what cost. because one article I read where the military gave this particular flight or fighter pilot or fighter plane a goal with AI, and it says AI actually killed the pilot because it wanted to accomplish its goal. And so
that was the one I referred to. It was a simulation. So
okay,
we
right.
get
It was a
people
simulation,
scared.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
what we as humans, for example, you cannot give we've seen these movies, you can't give a robot, an AI, and say, these are your instructions, because like Richard
Right.
in his book, he has a human feeling, a human nature, and it may
Right.
limit his decision-making process by what he actually sees, where a set of instructions says, kill the bad guy, and then the discrimination is who is the bad guy.
Exactly. From different perspectives, you can see bad guy here, bad guy there. Exactly.
You see?
Wow. So there's no Terminators yet. There's
Oh, really?
no Terminators.
I don't know. Is there?
See,
For
that's
the
what's in the
younger
back of
viewers,
everyone's mind.
for the younger viewers, I would highly recommend watching Terminator movies, Minority Report, and a few of the other
Yes.
sci-fi movies from the 80s that dealt with these issues already. So the
Right.
the older generations here, all four of us here tonight, we have this paradigm already of do not trust the robots. But young people haven't had that education yet. So I highly recommend they just go back for a vintage rewatch. And see, because writers have been imagining these scenarios for a few decades already. It's very, very interesting.
You could read
Exactly.
some
And
Isaac
haven't
Asimov from the
movie.
40s.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But Isaac Asimov was of robotics in the late 1940s. So it's been
Wow.
around a while. Yeah, it's been around a while. And of course, the danger always with things like AI is that people do things because they can, not because they should.
Yeah.
And someone is able to make an themselves by doing what they think something clever, and things. There's a lot of story potential there. It's the only way that AI excites me is in the potential for telling stories about what could or might go wrong with it.
Exactly. And I think because, like you said, Lene, we're that generation that's had these movies that have kind of maybe predicted some unpleasant outcomes, in terms of AI. There is something in the back of our heads that's always sort of warning, all the time. And I mean, and when you think about it, movies have predicted future technologies so incredibly well. That's a
And
valid
inspired
fear.
it. They've inspired it
Exactly.
as well. People invented cell phones after seeing for example, I think Gene Roddenberry's communication devices on Star Trek. So
On
people
Star
said,
Trek,
I want to
exactly.
invent something that can do that. So it's really, really good bouncing back and forth between inspiration, technological advances and stuff. But
Yeah.
the morality and the fables of it is a bit lacking because AI is so rapid now. With kids in
Yeah,
school using it
exactly.
already, they haven't had the luxury of 40, 50 years of Hollywood movies, sci-fi writers, all the greats. Those poor kids are just dumped in the AI sphere. So it's a bit concerning as a parent as well, I must say.
Yes, because now, I mean, it's really reframed how teachers are going to teach everything now because, students can just go online to Chat GPT or whatever and just have them write a paper. I mean, I need to write a paper on Martin Luther King, or Eddie Murphy, and it'll just pop right out.
Well, there's an interesting court case that I'm not going to say too much about, but I recently saw it on TikTok from another leading lawyer, where an American lawyer actually used ChatGPT to write his final heads of argument. The problem was that ChatGPT created 5 fictitious court cases to reference. And when the judge researched this, they discovered that none of those cases were real, and said lawyer's career is now under severe scrutiny.
I read that one too.
I
Yes.
read about that. Oh,
But my children's school is actually educating them on ChatGPT and running plagiarism programs and how to actually use it in a responsible manner for research instead of your final product, because it is at the end of the day still your name tied to that subject matter that you are representing.
Yes.
But it's a different world. Those things would never have happened in schools in previous years. So I
No.
think kids are getting a bit of a adult immersion in ethics here at the moment.
Yes,
It's
they are.
fascinating stuff.
But your
Fascinating.
point, but you make a good point that there is use, good use and bad use. And so Dedra mentioned earlier as we started about the fears associated with the internet and information. Now we know for sure in today's world that there is the bright web, the dark web, or the safe web and not so safe web. So we have
Exactly.
that. And so in AI, I think we will continue to discuss this. So, but before we go, we must realize that there is the good AI use and the bad AI use. And
Mhm.
as older us, me and Richard, especially, although we are reluctant, we will balance out that viewpoint. And I think we'll continue to discuss it even, Dedra.
Yes, absolutely. Next week, we're going to continue this, but we're probably going to go more in that upswing and talk about some of the positive uses of AI and how authors like Richard and I and Mr. B, I mean, how can we actually use some of the things that you mentioned, Lene, about planning our marketing strategies, maybe keeping track of sales? I mean, it would be really nice to have a few examples of that maybe our viewers and our
I can
listeners could
try, but I
benefit.
don't want to advertise. I don't want to advertise any of those services because there used to be just a few AI providers, and now there are a few thousand already. There's new ones
Ooh,
popping up every week. And
right.
because of some of the
Well, maybe,
ramifications, I don't want to name company names, but I can try and give a
right.
few
No
examples of
names.
what kind of thing they could be doing.
That's fine. Right.
Yeah,
Just a
because
point in the right direction. That would be
we
fine.
are having to wear many hats as creators, and anything that can save our valuable time to focus more on our story writing or artistic output or whatever is good. And
And that I
we need
think
to work with it. Yeah.
we can definitely relate to that. I know, Richard, you probably can relate well with me for this. I mean, when we were just chatting about world building, which is a lot of your writing as well.
Yeah.
I'm working on a novel now where I'm doing a lot of new world building, and it takes concentration, and I hate having to break my concentration to do marketing stuff. I really do.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same. It's I write because I enjoy writing, not because I enjoy marketing.
Right.
Hello,
Yeah.
yes,
The trouble is you
absolutely.
can't have one without the other. But yeah.
Well, on that note, before we close, Richard, I look forward to you showing us your early work too. So maybe next round you bring a different book each time, because I'm very
Yeah.
curious.
Each time.
And I
Yes.
think the listeners will be curious of where you can find the work, where exactly we can find your work, because we have listeners all over the world. And if we can tell them where to find your good work, because they enjoy the show, we can tell they enjoy the show because we can see all those YouTube ding, 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 ding listeners.
Yes,
But let's tell them,
absolutely.
we'll tell them exactly where they can have their own version of it, copy of it electronically or hard copy, and an AI copy. and look forward to talking about it again next week, Dedra.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you guys keep your thinking caps on, because next week we continue this discussion, and we will hopefully come up with some plans on how we can use this new technology to our advantage to save us time
Very cool.
safely.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. It was a wonderful time having you here, and I just love seeing your faces and hearing your ideas. And let's get some feedback from the listeners as well. We love to hear your questions, and we'll answer you if we can. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.